Welcome back to this episode of the MSP Insider Show Whiteboard Series, where I'm going to break down this concept from the interview with Katie Vreeland, why you are invisible to the buyers who need you most. You solve complex problems, right? You have pulled clients out of fires. You've saved networks from collapse. You've locked down vulnerabilities that no one else saw. But let me ask you this brutal question. Who else even knows that except for the person that you saved? You're not invisible because you're bad at what you do. You're invisible because you have never told the story of what you did. And here's the dangerous part. The loud MSPs down the street who are half as good as you, they're the ones that are winning the deals that you should. So within the next 20 minutes of this particular whiteboard teaching, you will have the exact model, the exact process that you can deploy in your business today that Katie taught on the full episode. So you can go watch that if you haven't seen it yet. Otherwise, this is the raw tactical piece that you can walk away from to implement it in your business. Let's go to the model. So the way I want to draw this out for you is through this quadrant, right? And the first place we're going to pay attention to is the bottom left corner. Now, what is in the bottom left corner? This is where we figure out what are the frustrations. And ultimately, we're going to start with the frustrations because this is where you really need to lean in to hook the psychology of that perfect future client that you have. This is also where most MSPs live, in silent frustration. Now, what do I mean by silent frustration? You're tired of being overlooked. You're also frustrated by clients that don't understand value. Clients' value. And we solve huge problems, but nobody knows it, right? We'll just do that for that image, right? We are humble, hungry, smart. We are so humble that we won't talk about the great things that we do or that our team does at all to anyone else because we feel bad or we feel whatever it is, that thing that we're feeling that we can't put the label on, and it prevents us from preaching our truth, right? So you are helping and your team is helping, the company is helping constantly, right? But the help isn't really building anything. You're not really building a brand. You're not really building pipeline. It's just silent wins, doing the day-to-day of what you're here for. And that is what we're doing down here in the frustration zone. But we're also not really great at being our own cheerleader. People won't argue about problems, but they will argue over the solution. Now, that last part is everything. You've been showing up with the solutions the entire time, but the clients need to hear the problem first so that they know that it's theirs. That's what we call being relatable. Right? We need them to lean in and feel seen and feel heard and feel understood. But not only that, understand that you understand what their plight is, what their pain is, what their problem is, which is how we flip the frustration zone from ours to theirs. So where do we go for the next section? Pretty simple. In this quadrant, we just move right here to the right. So if we talked about the frustrations before, now I want you to talk about the fears, or think about the fears rather. Now, when we think about fears, here is the fear that no one voices. If you do not learn how to tell your story, your best work dies in the dark. And those right fit clients, they're going to go to someone else that's less capable than you. You are not just losing deals. I mean, that's happening, but it's not the only thing that's happening, right? You're actually letting those weaker competitors win, right? They shouldn't win, but they are. Why? Because you are silent. Your silent service becomes your own growth ceiling, right? Your own growth ceiling. You cannot break it because you're too silent.
I think a lot of it is really reframing how we think about it. We're all problem solvers. So if you think about it in a way of, okay, these are the problems that I can solve and I know how to solve and I'm helping people, and you post about it in that context rather than look at what I do, because it's horrible. It's uncomfortable. I hate talking about myself or things that we do, but I will talk to anyone to help them solve a problem or advance or do anything they want to do.
So let's anchor these things in time, right? So if we go back, zoom out a little bit, we really have frustrations, which we talked about. Well, what are those? That's, if we put some time around it, that's the stuff that's happening right now in the business. It's the things that impact the way that they're thinking about right now. Whereas if we look at the fears, that's actually the fear of future pain, right? So that's future. That's not right now. The current frustrations grow into the fear of the future pain. It's how we start to anchor them and future pace them into the direction that we know they're clearly going if they don't make different decisions along the way. So now that we've filled in the bottom part of this quadrant, let's flip the lens here. Let's talk about the top part, right? And what is that? Well, if we go to the top left, which is going to be the now stuff, just like the frustrations were, what we have up here are the wants, right? It's the exact mirror, the exact opposite of the frustrations that they have. So on the top, we've got their wants. Let's think about what some of those wants are, right? Like, I want people to really understand what we really do, right? I want our value to be clear without overselling it. And I want people to be proud of sharing the work that we've done for them. Now, these aren't marketing desires. These are alignment desires, right? You want your service and your story to actually match. And yet most of us, again, because we don't like talking about ourselves, we can't ever get out of or into this mode because we're stuck inside that feeling, right? Whether it's imposter syndrome, whether it's just pride, or maybe it's even ego in the wrong way, right? Like, we just keep it inside. And so back to what I said at the beginning, the only people that even know are the ones that you did it for. Not the perfect future clients that are out there. They're going to need you to keep them out of that situation or to save them from the situation they're in right now. So let's transplant from the now and go to the future side of the positive piece of this quadrant, right? So if we do that, what's over here? This top right section of the quadrant is for the aspirations. And what's that? That's their positive outlook on what they could have, the future that they could have, but they do not have. They want it, they don't have it. And that is where you come in, right? It's also how you can look at it. Like, as the MSP, I want to attract the clients who already value us, right? So they see your value from the beginning. It's why they even engage to be a prospect to begin with. They are inbound. You're not chasing them. I want our clients to win, and I want our wins to compound, right? Compound winning. And I want to be seen as a strategic partner, even though that's probably an overused term in our industry. You're not just a ticket taker, though. Like, you're truly a valuable business partner. You're the one thing that they will never cut from their budget moving forward. So you want to be seen as strategic, right? You want to survive the next round of budget cuts. This only happens when your stories do two things, right? Just like Katie says, just like she outlined in the full episode, which you should go watch if you haven't. You need to name the problem, it's number one, and you need to claim the transformation, which is number two. So both you and your clients want to be in this aspiration zone, right? Like, it's where you aspire to be. It's why the label exists that way. It is not where you are, but it's where you want to be, and you don't know how to make that leap between the two. This is what happens when your stories do two things. It's the only two things that they have to do. So what's the first one? The first one is you need to name the problem. And the second one is that you need to claim, might be intentional that they rhyme, you need to claim the transformation. Yes, I write like a kindergartner, but who cares? It's here for value, right? So what happens when you're talking about the problems and the promise and the transformation that you give? I want you to think about it this way. This is a cliff. There's something on each side. Your fear and your frustrations, they live on this side. And where does your prospect live? They could be right here. Right? They're in that state. That's the now zone, right? We talked about that earlier. This is now. Now, let's talk about what's on the other side. The other side is where you have the wants and the aspirations. So what's really happening here? Oh yeah, forgot. Prospect could be sitting on this side. It depends on what their reality is. But this is why we're going to offer them a frame of reality that they must accept. And Katie alludes to this in our full interview, which is really kind of where I deconstructed and originated this model. So look at this picture. In order to see it, we need to name a problem that they have. Why do we do that? Because if you can articulate someone else's problem better than they can, they will automatically and subconsciously associate you with the solution. Okay? That's why we talk about problems. People will always agree on problems, and people will almost always disagree or challenge or argue solutions, which is a totally different 1 hour episode. We'll do that some other time. The only main point I want you to see here is that we're talking about problems and transformation. Why? This simple truth. every single one of your prospects will fit into one of two buckets. They are either going to be over here, where they currently have a problem that they do not want, or they're going to be over here, where they actually see the promise of a future that you offer them that they do not have. Either way, what are we doing? We're forcing urgency, we're forcing emotion, we're forcing and eliminating the third choice that kills you. And what is that third choice that kills every one of your deals? Maybe not everyone, but like 80% of them. It's why you get ghosted. It's all these other things. It's indecision. Indecision is literally your number one competitor. It's the third choice that most of them choose. I don't have to jump off this cliff one way or the other. The current situation that I'm in is not as bad. It's good enough, right? Like the fear of pain of changing is greater than the actual pain or reality of actually changing. So let's go back to the model. You are not selling, okay? You are signaling to all of the right, perfect future clients that, hey, we have solved this before for other people who were just like you. Marketing is not what you do when you're ready to grow. It's how your work builds the momentum instead of just resetting every quarter. Let me show you how that works. What are we ultimately talking about? We're talking about visibility first. And what does visibility offer you? It offers you scalability, right? Which is ultimately what we're really talking about. When I want more leads and I want more growth and I want more MRR and I want more all these things, we're talking about needing to scale it out because you can't just sit and wait for that next referral because you never know when or where that's going to come from, right? The second thing that we need is story. Now, why do we need story? We need relatability. Why do we need to be relatable? So that the people that you want to work with can see themselves in you or in the customers that you've already helped, right? You can see this across sales everywhere. If the company, if the person in charge, if the leader, if the process, if none of that is relatable, then it does not unlock the emotional keys inside of us to feel like we belong inside that solution or with that person, right? It's an imaginary barrier that you must overcome. Stories are the quickest and easiest way to do that and have been since the beginning of time with cave men and women in the cave. And that's just how it works. Now, how do we make that more tangible? We talk about the problems, right? Why? Those are the magnets. It is the problems that bring people to you. Through a relatable lens, that produces and creates the scalability. The best MSPs, they don't have to shout, right? The only thing that they have to do is be crystal clear on their messaging, right? It is actually the clarity, their message, that works harder than the outbound itself.
Having conversations with your current clients too, and getting a testimonial, figuring out what that problem is that people are finding you for, and make a piece of content around it, or just ask for a testimonial and start putting that out.
So how do we pull all of this together? Let's go back to the original model, right? Most of us MSPs, we sit down here in our own frustrated zone. And it's also really where we anchor most of the messaging, maybe if we're willing to talk about it out loud. But what we want to do, what we need to do in order to truly grow the business is to take ourselves from that zone, the painful now, to the desired future, right? We want the desired future, but we want it now. How do we do that? Well, when you unlock those three components we just talked about, and when you understand this, naming the problem and claiming the transformation that you offer to your prospects, what happens? We actually create this entirely new category on this 4 quadrant up here, and we move all of our messaging from down here. We shove it way up into this box that no one else even knows exists. This is where your top 4% of MSPs are running their messaging, are talking about their businesses, and understand the psychology, the deep emotional components that it takes to unlock action now, right? You've helped people tell that story, right? If you have, then that's where you go. You up into that right-hand box. If you've solved a problem, then you need to name that problem and talk about it up there. right? It's not ego. It's how leaders actually teach. This is exactly how I led 2 different sales teams to record-breaking growth at 2 different MSPs with multiple individuals across those teams. We're talking slightly over 500 grand in net new MRR over 4.5 years, right? So that's the kind of results this level of messaging can bring to your MSP. You don't need a better marketing stack, right? You need a better memory stack that you make public. And it doesn't have to be overcomplicated, which, trust me, I've over-engineered and overcomplicated so many things across my career. I'm telling you, we need to keep it simple, stupid, right? That's what we've got to do. All you have to do, start with one win. Doesn't even have to be your most recent win, but you do need to turn it into a focused post, a focused message, and then you watch and you see who shows up. And you repeat that message over and over again. So if this resonates with you, and if you're ready to go from frustrated to the aspirational self of actually growing, just like the top 4% do, which is entirely possible for you, there's just a couple of key tweaks and changes that you need to make. Then what I want you to do is, wherever you're seeing this video, either look in the comments for a link that's already there, or type the word clarify to get a process that you can implement today in your business to help you understand, how do I go from talking about the fears and the frustrations and the pain and the right now stuff into the aspirational identity of growing like the top 4% do. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the MSP Insider Whiteboard Series, and thank you to Katie Vreeland for dropping this knowledge, this bomb, this context that I could unpack and provide to the community here through this teaching.